I've been a fan of Harlan Coben's mystery adaptations on Netflix, but now his novel Shelter is a new series on Prime. So is this going to become your new obsession? After the sudden death of his father leads him to start a new life in Kasselton, New Jersey, Mickey Bolitar quickly finds himself tangled in the mysterious disappearance of a new student at his school, which leads to uncovering unimaginable secrets within their quiet suburban community. With the help of his friends, Mickey pulls back the sleepy facade of Kasselton to reveal a dark underground that may hold the answers to decades of disappearances, deaths, and legends, and perhaps even Mickey's own complex family history. So the series is geared towards the young adult audience, and it's filled with its fair share of teenage angst and drama. But then so are the adult storylines within this too. Mickey Bolitar is the lead character, and he's portrayed by Jaden Michael. Now he's been in quite a lot, but what I remember him most from is Vampires vs. the Bronx. Here, he's a mourning teenager, so he's moody, depressed, but he can also disarm with a charming smile. He's smart and inquisitive, which is exactly what we want for a character within a mystery. Now, he meets two loners, Spoon and Ema, and they're at his new school, and then they form a friendship. But what really drives a lot of the plot for this show is that on his first day at school, Mickey meets a girl named Ashley. They hit it off, and they make plans to hang out later that day. But then Ashley disappears, and Mickey becomes obsessed with finding out what happened to her. Now that storyline, it could be enough to drive a series for a few episodes, depending on how complex the show wanted to get with the twists and the complications. But for this 8-episode run, several other tangents are thrown in to make the plot way more layered. Mickey has some suspicions that are raised about his father's death. There's this freaky old woman who lives in a decrepit mansion that may just be luring children into her den of disappearance. And then there are shady figures that are tailing Mickey and his friends. Finally, there's a new relationship for Mickey's aunt who he's staying with. The first 3 episodes of this drop at once, and then the remaining ones are going to come out weekly. Now, the story is too stretched out and filled with just too many offshoots for its own good. The story, while it does get more complicated, also begins to feel even more ridiculous, and then by the halfway point, it's also very obvious what's going on. So even though there is still some intrigue that's left, the crux of why things are happening, it's no longer obscured for us, so which then reduces the tension greatly. Now, the first episode, it's also kind of a rough start, but it does find its footing by the second episode. But then all the way through this, the show has pacing issues. Sometimes there's intensity that keeps a steady momentum for the storytelling, and then there's other episodes that feel like they're just taking forever, lurking on aspects that are uninteresting or bogged down by convoluted elements. I really enjoyed the actors for their chemistry with each other. The scripting is pretty bland, and the dialogue gets cheesy in a lot of spots, but the young cast makes the most of it, and they create believable and charismatic performances so that I actually cared about their outcomes. The show as a whole is also drawn out unnecessarily. I mean, not only through the tangential story arcs, but also just with filler and fluff. Pieces are included to supposedly add more drama to the narrative, but because so many of them don't actually lead anywhere, they're a pointless inclusion. Now, for example, there's this massive deal made about a school play. And while there are little things that are revealed or maybe made possible through some of this, the play and all the lead up with the story, they're largely forgotten after a very short bit, meaning that we spend an inordinate amount of time for a couple of character lines and then some interactions that could have been accomplished more efficiently and naturally while also not including an arc that led nowhere. Another example of the filler is unfortunately the majority of the final episode. We are shown a ton of a high school basketball game and a full cheer routine. Why? I have no idea. I mean, nothing is revealed here, nor are there any character moments of growth that are achieved. And it's like 10 to 15 minutes of pure nothingness. And then by the end, it began to just tick me off, especially because the show had lost most of its momentum and the intrigue within the previous episodes. And something else that's a worthless inclusion is the drama that we're shown between Mickey's aunt and her former best friend. Now, this has no context or bearing on the overall mystery and may only be included to possibly appeal to slightly older audiences, to just give them some more adult drama amidst all the YA stuff. Now, for as much as I grew to dislike this show, I do have to admit that there are points in most episodes that would suck me back in just as I was ready to tap out. I think a lot of it comes down to Jaden Michael, Abby Corrigan, Adrian Greensmith, and Sage Linder. Now, the 4 of them together, they can be entertaining even during the melodrama. Also, some small elements that would be uncovered as the story went along that then fed into the main mystery. But also, it felt like it could take the story further than this season. So I was slightly sucked in. Now, Harlan Coben has 3 novels with Mickey as the lead. Now, I've not read any of them, but because there are more, I guess this series could continue on past this first mystery. Now, the season does have a resolution to the main story, which I think is nice, so it's not dragged out more than it already is. But the door is then open to follow Mickey, and if they were to continue with the young cast that they do have here, I might give it a go. I mean, even though this season wasn't wholly satisfying. Now, something that I really dislike in shows is when they give teases or hints that go nowhere. And I'm not talking about misdirection or red herrings. Those are wonderful and necessary to pull off a great mystery. I'm talking about when items are given prominence and focus within the story, and then the show ends and it's never addressed or visited. Now, there's a photo in this that is a focal point for a few beats in the second to the last episode, I believe, and it is something that could have massive story ramifications. But when the show ends, nothing ever came of it. And I really want to say specifically what this thing is, but it reveals just way too much of the plot, so I'm going to have to just leave it vague like this. Now, I think if you're looking for a mystery series to dive into, this may satisfy for a bit. But watching week to week, I think is most likely going to be a struggle, as there's not enough to maintain the energy and the intrigue one episode at a time. Now, if you binge chunks at a time, it can be more entertaining, but it doesn't remove the monotonous arcs and the useless tangents that are used as filler. So overall, Harlan Coben's Shelter has a provocative premise and is deftly led by the talented Jaden Michael. Unfortunately, the script contains too many irrelevant offshoots, leading audiences through time-wasting arcs filled with melodrama and bad dialogue. The story then takes too long to tell and reveals most of the intrigue prematurely, leaving the story to squirm and flail through obviousness and predictability until the season comes to a close. There are many other excellent mysteries to dive into, so unless you're really jonesing for a Coben mystery, give this one a pass. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and a bunch of violence, including child abuse. I give Harlan Coben's Shelter 2 out of 5 couches. So what have you been watching lately? Anything great that you can recommend to me in the comments below? If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching.